Today, I'm going to rank every single newsletter growth channel or email list growth channel on a tier list. I'll break down about 30 different ways to grow your newsletter or email list and which are best. I can almost guarantee there's about a 100% chance that you're using growth sources for your newsletter, for your email list, that are a complete waste of time and money. Not all newsletter subscribers are created equal. I'm going to prove that today. In fact, subscribers from some sources are worth 50 to 100 times more than others, and I think you're going to be shocked by the results of this tier list. Most people don't realize how much more money you can make with a quality email list of 5,000 people and a good offer versus a crap list of over 100,000 people. And I have a lot of data I'm going to share later to back this up. So after running my numbers, I found the difference in conversion rate from free newsletter subscribers to buyers between my best sources and my worst growth sources was over 6,000%. So that means I'm making 6,000% more from some sign up sources versus others. I've also found the same types of data and the same patterns across a ton of my clients too. So it's not just my data, and I'll break that down at the end of this video. If you're new here, my name is Matt McGarry. I'm the founder and CEO of GrowLetter, and we're a company that helps media companies and creators grow their businesses. We've helped clients add over 10 million email subscribers and over $100 million in sales. I'm going to be ranking 30 growth channels across 6 different categories. We'll talk about paid social, organic social, paid search, paid recommendations, organic growth tactics, and a lot more. The ranking criteria is based off of my personal experience, the data that I've got from my newsletter, my business, and about 30 different clients. We're going to be factoring in the scalability. So like, can you scale this channel? Can it help you add tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of subscribers, or does it cap out at a certain amount? What the cost per subscriber is, the time investment required, and most importantly, the subscriber quality. So what's the open rate, click-through rate? And then even more importantly, how do they convert to customers? What's the lifetime value of that newsletter subscriber? And it's all based off of real data. First, organic social. We'll start with YouTube, which is probably where you're watching this now. It generates very high quality subscribers if you can get people onto your email list from YouTube. Another benefit of YouTube is there's different ways to monetize. You can have YouTube AdSense, you can have brand deals, and you can get people onto your newsletter and monetize them that way too. You build a deep audience relationship or connection with the people that watch you on YouTube. And my personal favorite thing about it is that your content lives forever and it can compound. So if you publish a YouTube video, it can continue to get thousands of views a year later, 2 years later, 6 months later. That's very rare compared to almost all the other content channels we'll talk about later. That can also benefit you when people are searching for things on Google or YouTube. They can find your video on both of those places. So I have videos that I published a year ago that are still getting views. The cons of YouTube is just all the production time it takes. So you got to edit videos, make thumbnails. It can take, money, and I have to hire contractors to do so. But it's a great channel, and that's why I put YouTube in S tier for newsletter growth. Next is LinkedIn. Also great subscribers from LinkedIn, very high quality, but LinkedIn's better for the B2B creators and the brands that are mostly targeting other businesses or professionals. It's not going to work for every single niche. YouTube is pretty universal. Like, people talk about everything here. LinkedIn, it's more business related topics. One cool thing about LinkedIn is it's a little bit better than other platforms because you can post something, and if it does well, it will still get views and impressions for about a week, and you can get newsletter subscribers from that post. It doesn't last nearly as long as YouTube, but it lasts longer than places like Twitter. The algorithm really favors genuine connections and conversations. So if you're having conversations in your comments in the DMs with other creators too, the algorithm favors that. It's kind of more like a community on LinkedIn than just like a platform where you broadcast to people. And then one subtle thing that's actually a huge benefit that helps you with email list growth is that you can DM your connections on LinkedIn. And so one of the most popular strategies, and I'll put an example from my LinkedIn account on screen, is the comment to get giveaway, where you're writing some type of post or you're promoting some type of lead magnet, and you ask people to comment a word like, newsletter, and then you DM them a link to that thing where they have to go to a landing page to enter their email address to subscribe. So that's called a comment to get giveaway. It's basically a fancy way of promoting a lead magnet that increases the engagement and reach of your LinkedIn post. And that's super powerful when you have the ability to DM your connections. You can DM people who follow you, and you can ask them to join your newsletter. And it's probably one of the best ways to get people off platform and onto your email list. And that's why LinkedIn's so powerful. The main con is it just doesn't work for all niches. It's not for everybody. With that said, I would still put LinkedIn as an S tier. Now we have Instagram, which I'm not an expert at, but it's worked great for a lot of our clients. Reels and videos can go viral even if you have a low follower count. It works for pretty much any niche or industry because Instagram has billions of users. You can DM your followers and do that same type of comment to get giveaway that I talked about before. People who follow you, you can DM them and ask them to join your newsletter. That's super powerful for conversion. You can post stories of more casual content, and you can have links and call to actions in your story for your newsletter. So Instagram is great for email list growth, for newsletter growth. It's an amazing platform for that. The only main con is, it's not a con for everybody, but a caveat is that you have to really post short form video. You have to post reels to succeed and grow your audience on Instagram. You can't just post square images like you could 10 years ago and expect to grow. It's really a video first platform, so you have to be able to execute on great videos to grow your audience and your email list from Instagram. With all that said, I put it in the S tier as well. Okay, something a little bit new, Substack Notes. This is really one of the last social platforms that's focused on written content. So a lot of people think of Substack as a newsletter platform, and it is. You can send newsletters and emails of Substack, but it's also a social platform. They have this part of the app called Notes, which is basically like Twitter, but Substack's a version of it. And it's all written content, and people really appreciate great writing and great written content there. What's cool about it is that, in every single note that you post, there's like a one-click subscribe button where they can join your Substack newsletter and you get that user's email address. So it's very easy to get people from Substack Notes onto your Substack email list. Pretty simple to use. The cons of this are pretty straightforward. It's newer. I think it was launched 2 years ago, a little bit more improved. There's way less users than something like Twitter or Instagram. And the links in your post subscribe people to your Substack newsletter, not other platforms. So if you use Beehive, ConvertKit, High Level, whatever you use, you're either going to have to start sending with Substack as well as that tool, which could be a good idea for some people, or you're going to have to export those emails from Substack and onto Beehive or whatever platform that you use. And then the final thing, because it's a smaller and newer social platform, there's just not content for every niche or industry. There's not users that care about every niche industry. So like, politics is pretty big. Marketing, writing, news is pretty big on Substack, a bunch of other categories, but things like sports or maybe niche hobbies like golf or crochet. Not that those are niche, but there's not for everybody. There's not much of that on Substack. So it really has to be the right thing for your content and your type of audience, and that might not be a fit for you. So because of all that, I'm going to put Substack Notes in the B tier. I think in the next few months, it could be in an A tier soon, and maybe it will be an S tier someday, but right now it's going to go in the B tier. Then we have Twitter, or now X. And this is one that used to be probably an S tier for newsletter growth as a source, but has declined rapidly in the past 2 years. I really think it's only good now for the right niches that are super hyperactive on X. So news works well, politics works well, tech, investing, crypto. If you're not in those spaces, I don't think using X is a very good idea. At least I wouldn't focus on using X to grow your audience. The algorithm has changed a ton, and it really favors video, which is funny because Twitter used to be an all text platform, but now Elon is just focusing on video. It's kind of like TikTok, but worse. And so if you're not producing video, you're going to struggle to grow. It's really hard to reach people there. Reach has declined for most creators on that platform. It's hard to convert them to email because X really penalizes you when you post links to the platform. A post of links get almost no reach. So for that reason, Twitter was an S tier for newsletter growth. X is a C tier for newsletter growth, and that's what it is right now. Then we have TikTok. This is one that I have the least experience with, but again, a lot of this data is based off of client experiences. What's cool about TikTok is you have the potential to go viral with a small amount of followers. Your followers don't really matter, right? It's more about the quality of your video and your video retention. Some differences are that TikTok has a younger-ish audience, although I think half of TikTok users are over 30, so it's not that young. It's not all like 18-year-olds like some boomers kind of imagine, but it's younger than something like LinkedIn. But one observation for me is that the audience is usually less sophisticated there. So like the stuff I'm talking about in this video, it would completely go over people's head on TikTok, and it would get no traction, no views. And so you kind of have to dumb things down if you're doing more educational, more B2B type stuff like I do. Harder to convert to email because you can't DM your followers. You can't do the comment to get stuff you can do on Instagram and LinkedIn. And that's why Instagram and LinkedIn give you such an advantage for email list growth versus TikTok. And I would encourage, if you're picking between like a short video platform, I would encourage YouTube Shorts or Instagram Reels. I think they're going to be way more powerful for you to monetize over TikTok. You might get more followers on TikTok, but I guarantee you can make a lot more money with Instagram, for example. So that's it. So for those reasons and more, TikTok is going to be in the C tier as well. Then we have podcast, which isn't a social platform, but We just put it in here because I wanted to talk about it. Podcasts are awesome. You build this amazing audience connection with your listeners, but it's a massive time investment. It's really hard to grow your podcast downloads. And what a lot of people don't realize, it's harder to convert a podcast listener to a newsletter subscriber than it is to convert like a social follower. Because like podcast people are podcast people, they're not necessarily newsletter listeners. And just because they subscribe to your podcast does not mean they want your newsletter. And so I would expect if you have a podcast, you can probably only convert 5 to 15% of those podcast listeners to a newsletter subscriber. You kind of cap out there over time, and there's better ways to grow your email list. So for that reason, podcast is in the D tier. It's really it can be a great channel in and of itself, but if you want to use this to grow your newsletter, it's a very bad channel for that. And that's what I'm talking about today. Now we have paid social, very different than what I just covered. We're talking about ways to pay money to grow your newsletter. And paid social is very effective. It's scalable. You can get hundreds of thousands or millions of subscribers from paid social. You can measure your results, your cost per subscriber, your subscriber LTV, the revenue you get back. It can get you off of the content treadmill so you can grow your newsletter and grow your business without publishing new content every single day, every single week. Almost all the newsletters that I've worked with, actually, I would say all of the newsletters I have worked with that have over 1 million subscribers or more have used paid social, and it's been a huge driver of growth for them. But it's not for everybody, especially it's not great for beginners. And if you're not monetizing your newsletter yet, it's probably a bad idea. Still, I want to give you everything here, so I'm going to cover it. We'll start with meta ads, which is probably the most common paid social source to use. So if you do it well, and all this assumes that you do it correctly and you're smart and successful in this, you can acquire subscribers at $1 to $3 per subscriber. Usually we're getting like a 40 or 50% open rate from newsletter subscribers from Meta. It has one of the best ROAS, so return on ad spend of any paid channel. It's almost infinitely scalable because there's so many users across Meta, which is Facebook and Instagram. Like we spend for some clients $500,000 per month plus on Meta, and it's profitable. And we're adding hundreds of thousands of newsletter subscribers every single month. The cons are it takes skill. Like you have to understand the platform. You have to know how to set things up right. You have to be good at making ad creative. You have to have a newsletter that has a strong value proposition and solves a problem. So if you just suck at that, or if you don't want to take the time to learn it, Meta is not going to work for you. But it just, for people that do execute, it just flat out works. And that's why it is in S tier. Then we have LinkedIn ads. I'll move a little bit quicker through these. LinkedIn ads is really only for the B2B publishers. You want to attract, people who are executives and leaders at other businesses. LinkedIn ads are great for that. You're going to get higher quality subscribers than Meta ads because you have way more targeting options. You can target by job title, industry, all this cool stuff that Meta doesn't give you. You're going to probably see higher email engagement from LinkedIn ads versus Meta, but it's going to be significantly more expensive, usually double the cost. We might see potentially double the lifetime value of a subscriber from LinkedIn ads versus Meta, but you're also going to pay double to acquire that subscriber. And for a lot of B2B publishers and B2B creators, that can be totally worth it. But keep that in mind when you're testing LinkedIn. So that's why it's in B tier. Then we have Twitter or X ads. I mean, they just suck. X has not prioritized improving the ad platform. It is a lot cheaper to reach people than Meta. Your CPM, cost per 1,000 impressions, is crazy low, but the platform just doesn't convert to like subscribers, leads, and purchases. You get a lot of bots. The platform's super buggy. It's hard to scale it profitably past a couple $100 per day or less. I mean, it's really just an awful ad platform, honestly. So I'm going to put that in E tier. Just use Meta instead of Twitter. There's no point in even bothering with Twitter or X ads right now. TikTok ads are kind of like Meta ads, but just worse. You're going to get slightly higher cost, you're going to get slightly lower quality, and you're going to be able to scale less than Meta. So like maybe Meta, you can run it at 10K a month profitably, but TikTok ads, you might struggle to spend $2,000 a month profitably. It definitely can work for some people, and it totally has, but it doesn't make sense to try until you've mastered Meta first. Oftentimes what we'll do with clients is we'll try and get them to at least $100,000 per month in Meta ad spend profitably before we even consider TikTok, because Meta is just so scalable. And TikTok has a lot of issues. It's Meta, but worse. One reason for that is TikTok has really emphasized the shop platform, like the affiliate shopping they do, and they haven't really worked to improve the ad platform as much as the shop stuff and the e-commerce features. So that's kind of what the state of TikTok looks like, at least right now. So for that reason, TikTok is in the C tier. Now we go on to another category, which is search engine marketing. So SEO, Google search, Bing search, people searching for keywords and terms and then discovering your content and then signing up for your newsletter from your blog, from your website, stuff like that. The first one is SEO organic search. And I kind of group Google and Bing together in this because you're going to get almost all of your SEO traffic from Google. Bing is nice to have, but not a lot. This can be really great. I think a lot of people crap on it now because of AI and all the SEO changes, and that's definitely true. But the subscribers you get from search have such high intent. They're actively searching for things about your topic, and the quality and conversion rate to purchase is crazy good. The content, can potentially work for years. So you can have a blog post that ranks on Google, and you can keep updating that blog post, once a year or twice a year, and that can continue to drive you traffic for years potentially. Another benefit people don't think about is like a lot of people want to do AI SEO, or sometimes they call it everything optimization. There's a ton of different terms. But so if you want, like if people are searching for things about your topic in ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, and you want to show up, the best way to show up in the AI searches is actually by doing good traditional SEO. So it still matters even in the age of AI taking over a lot of search volume. So the cons are AI is disrupting and cutting SEO traffic by a lot, maybe 50%. It takes a long time to get started with SEO. That's probably the biggest con. Like if you're just starting your business, your newsletter, thinking about SEO as a growth channel doesn't make sense until you've been publishing content for at least a year. So you have to put it aside. And another thing people don't consider is you have to master what we call ECAP in the industry, but it's email capture. So basically someone lands on a blog post. How do you capture their email addresses? How do you have pop-ups, inline forms, lead magnets that convince them to sign up for your newsletter from that blog post, from that piece of content? If you're not focusing on ECAP and conversion rate optimization on your content's ranking for SEO, you're not going to grow your email list. But if you are, it can be a great channel. So for that reason, SEO is in an A tier for me. Google Ads, kind of like SEO, but you're paying to be a search result instead of getting there organically for free. So it also provides very high intent, very high quality subscribers when you're bidding on the right keywords, when your ad is showing up for the right search term. It can provide great return on ad spend if you have a high LTV newsletter or a high ticket product that you're selling to those leads and subscribers who sign up from Google Ads. But the cons are pretty clear. You're going to have a much higher CPA than channels like Meta or even LinkedIn. You're talking $5 to $10 or $15 per email subscriber. If you're trying to get a lead with more information, that might cost you even more from Google Ads. It's hard to scale because you have to have enough search volume on the terms that you're bidding on. So like for me, for example, I talk about newsletter stuff. There's only so much search volume on terms like how to grow my newsletter, newsletter growth, newsletter strategies. Like there's only a couple thousand searches per month for those types of things. And that's going to limit how much growth I can get from a platform like Google Ads. And so for that reason, Google Ads is a B tier. It still can be great, but it's probably not great for everybody. And it's definitely not great for beginners. I will say that Morning Brew, which is one of the biggest, most successful newsletter businesses in the world, sold for 75 million. Google Ads is probably their number one or two paid growth source. So it definitely works for some people. Now, next category, partnerships and collaboration. What do I mean by that? Partnerships are super important and overlooked for growth because they're not very scalable. You have to kind of do things manually. You have to build relationships with other people, other publishers, but I wouldn't overlook them. Partnerships help you position yourself as an expert through an implied endorsement when you show up, on someone else's podcast, on someone else's website, etc. You're able to borrow other people's audiences. Super powerful. You're getting really high quality pre-warmed traffic and subscribers, and you can grow without spending money. So the first partnership channel is doing a guest newsletter or a guest blog post for another blog or for another newsletter. And this does take work, but you get extremely high quality subscribers. You build a relationship with other publishers. You show yourself as an authority, as a thought leader. You can get a backlink when that newsletter or blog is published to the web. That helps build your domain's authority so you can improve your SEO and your AI search optimization. The cons are pretty obvious. You have to have the relationship or you have to build it. It takes time. It's not as scalable. You could probably only do one of these per month. And the final thing that people overlook is you need a clear call to action inside of that guest post or inside of that guest blog post. If you just write something for someone else and you don't ask them to sign up for your newsletter or go join your thing, you're not going to get traffic or subscribers from them. So you have to have a clear call to action for your stuff in that guest post. So for that reason, it's a B tier. Maybe higher than people would think. I think it's really worth doing, but it's not the end all be all. Another option is to be a podcast guest. Of course, the cons are clear. Like you have to have the relationships. You have to do outreach potential. You have to have some existing authority. And you also need to have some type of call to action for your newsletter in that podcast or you're not going to grow. People aren't just going to find you magically if they hear you on a podcast. They need to know where to go to sign up. But podcasts are great because the host is promoting you. It builds your authority. The subscribers come pre-sold on how awesome you are. And because you're a guest, you don't have to do any production on your end. You just show up, do the interview, and then the podcast does the rest. So for that reason, it's a B tier. I think it's super powerful. For me, one of the kind of breakout moments in my career was going on a podcast that it only got, 5 to 10,000 listeners, but it helped me get a lot of clients and a lot of early subscribers and really build my reputation. And I've gone on some podcasts that were really small shows, but it was published to YouTube and it got over 100,000 views, which is a lot for me right now. So I would encourage trying this out, especially after you build your expertise and authority through publishing your own content first. Then we have newsletter ads. So this isn't exactly a partnership channel, but you're buying an ad in another newsletter. That's what I'm talking about. So I'm buying an ad in someone else's newsletter to grow my newsletter. And other newsletters are by far the highest quality source to get subscribers. You're going to get off the charts open rates, click-through rates. I'm talking 60, 70% open rates, 10 to 25% click-through rates when you get a subscriber from another newsletter. And that's because people who read newsletters are newsletter people. If they click an ad in a newsletter about another newsletter and they join yours, they're already reading that newsletter and clicking that other newsletter. They're really likely to continue to read and use yours as long as the content's pretty good, right? So that's why the quality is so amazing. But it's more expensive. If you're buying an ad in another newsletter, you're probably looking at a $5 to $15 cost per subscriber. And there's a lot of cons to this that make it tough to work. It's manual. You have to reach out and work with these newsletters one-on-one. It's slow to scale. It's expensive. Some newsletters just flop and they don't work at all for you. And it's hard to find really more than like 2 to 3 other newsletters that are going to work for you consistently. And that's okay because you don't need a lot to grow your list. If you have, 2 to 3 other newsletters you buy ads in, that helps you. That's awesome. But what happens is over time, when you keep buying ads in those newsletters, that source gets exhausted because the audience has seen you over and over again. So you can probably only buy 4 to 8 ads successfully before the audience just sees you enough where they're not really going to take action anymore. So for those reasons, it is a C tier. Still really, really good if you can make it work, but just, a lot of nuances to understand with newsletter ads. Then we have cross promotions, which is kind of like a way to do newsletter ads for free or in an organic way. Just like newsletter ads, the best quality source, because a cross promotion is when another newsletter promotes you and then you promote them in exchange, both in your newsletters. You kind of like swap ads essentially between the two newsletters. So you're going to get crazy engagement. And one of the problems is it's just slow to scale, just like newsletter ads. Like you have to build these relationships one-on-one with other newsletter publishers. You have to ask them if they would like to do a cross promotion. You have to schedule it. You have to coordinate the results back and forth. And it can become kind of a headache, but still the quality is outstanding. So I would put cross promotions in the B tier just because you don't have to pay for the growth. You're doing it in an organic way. Then we have speaking. So I'm talking about speaking at conferences, events, stuff like that. Obviously, this is going to build your credibility. People that do sign up for your newsletter from an event are going to be crazy high quality because they got to see you talk and meet you in person. And they're really going to pay attention to what you have to say in your newsletter. Oftentimes, you can get 50 to 500 newsletter signups from an event. It's not unusual to convert 25% of the room you're speaking to a newsletter subscriber. That is, if you have a clear call to action in your talk and you have some type of incentive. So you should have like, hey, this is the lead magnet that I'm going to give you that's related to my talk. There should be a QR code on screen. Ideally, you ask the event organizer to share your newsletter too, or share that resource too, so attendees can get it and opt into your newsletter. And so it's not unusual if you do that stuff well to convert 20, 30, 40% of the room to a newsletter subscriber and many more of that room to clients. But the cons are big, right? You got to travel. You got to have the relationships. You got to do outreach. Sometimes you might need to cover your own travel, which is expensive. There's a lot of opportunity costs of things that you could have been doing other than attending the event. So speaking's great, but it's not great for just newsletter growth. It's great for a lot of other reasons. So for that reason, it's a C tier, and maybe it might even be lower. Here's the other organic growth stuff that you can do. So the next channel is a referral program. A lot of people who are in the newsletter space are probably familiar with what this is, but basically the idea is that within the newsletter, there will be some type of incentive for you as a subscriber to share the newsletter with a friend or a colleague, and you will get rewarded for that sharing. And we'll put something on screen now to kind of illustrate that. So like Morning Brews use these milestone-based referral programs where if you refer, 3 friends, you get stickers. If you refer 15 friends, you get a hat or a t-shirt or whatever, stuff like that. People also do one reward referral programs where if you refer one friend, you unlock like a digital product that is free for the newsletter to send to you. Like it's like a lead magnet, it's a report, it's a checklist, a cheat sheet, stuff like that. So you can do both digital rewards for a referral program and you can do physical rewards too. I definitely recommend the digital ones to start with just to see if it actually works for you. Now, referral programs, they sound really great in theory. Like, hey, if I can get people to join my newsletter and then those people share it with more people, I have this like infinite viral growth loop. That sounds really cool, but it rarely drives meaningful growth. People are not really sharing for the incentive. They're sharing because your content is so good that they want their friends and colleagues to see it. So if your content isn't incredible, even if you have a great incentive, you're not going to get a lot of shares. So you have to have both an incentive and both incredible content. And then another thing you need is you need a broad enough topic where people actually have friends to share it with. So my newsletter is all about like building a media company, email marketing, newsletter growth, stuff like that. A lot of people don't have a lot of friends in their network who also care about those things. And so they're not very likely to share my newsletter. Okay, if it's a broader topic, like a morning brew, which covers business and tech and finance, they have more people in their network to share it with. So that's also a factor with referral programs. But yeah, it's tough for a lot of reasons, but it can work for some. It's in a C tier. It's in the C tier for that reason. And then we have giveaways. This is where you're giving something away in exchange for subscribers. And it's different than a lead magnet because you're not giving something away to every single subscriber. You say something like, hey, I'm giving away a MacBook, giving away one MacBook randomly to someone who joins my email list in the next 7 days. And then you get 1,000 subscribers and then you pick one of those randomly and you give them the MacBook, for example. Giveaways can be way more sophisticated than that and they can be better than what I just described. They're a lot more effective, but that's essentially what a giveaway is, right? You're incentivizing people to join your list through a random giveaway. And the problem is that these just attract freebie seekers. They don't attract like high intent subscribers who really want your content, who want to learn from you and work with you. And those type of subscribers rarely lead to revenue. They usually have high unsubscribe rates, high spam complaints. They don't buy stuff, super low engagement. These can also go wrong. Like you can give away something and you just don't get any growth from it, or you don't get any, revenue back from it. And then you're just out, $1,000 or whatever it costs you to put on a giveaway. So for that reason, they're in the D tier. It's definitely possible to make them work for some people, but it's tricky. You really have to have experience doing giveaways the right way. Forward to a friend. I don't know if you've ever seen a newsletter that has like a little section that says, hey, if you like this newsletter, please forward it to a friend, something like that. That's pretty common. I see it in a lot of newsletters nowadays. The problem is no one actually does that. Very few people are actually forwarding your email to a friend. If you just think about the nature of email, this isn't like 2005. People are not really forwarding stuff unless it's a work email that someone else needs to read. They're not forwarding content. The place where people share content is on social media, YouTube, Instagram, stuff like that. So it just doesn't really work at scale. Like you don't get much out of it. Even if it does, you're going to have a low conversion rate from that forwarded email to a subscriber. I mean, you're talking about like peanuts here. It's so few subscribers. And then that takes up a lot of space in your newsletter. And it's just better to use that space for something else. For that reason, forward to a friend is in the E tier. Then there's online communities. A lot of people think I'm going to like join a Facebook group or like a private membership and I'm going to talk about my newsletter and get subscribers from that. That sounds, cool in practice, but it doesn't really work. A lot of these communities are going to catch on super quick. They're going to ban you for self-promotion. This is super time intensive for you for a potentially very few amount of subscribers and for a place that just can't scale. Like you can never, get more than 10, 20% of the community to join your email list. But if you spend that same time creating content like on social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, you could get thousands or theoretically hundreds of thousands of people because those platforms just reach way more. And so it's better just to spend that online community farming time on social media, trying to post quality stuff and then having call to actions to get people onto your list. So I wouldn't recommend using online communities to grow your newsletter. And I put it in the E tier. Now, we have come to the worst channels, the ones that most people don't realize how bad they are for your newsletter, for your business, but I'll try and explain that right now. These channels don't just not work. They could actually damage your newsletter. They could hurt your email engagement. They could create more spam requests, and they definitely don't lead to any meaningful revenue in any type of way. So let me talk about what they could be, or what they are rather. Paid recommendations and co-registration. If you're in the newsletter space, you know about this stuff. If you don't, we'll put up an illustration or a video on screen of what paid recommendations look like. This is basically where other newsletters will put up a little widget on their website. So after someone subscribes to a newsletter, they'll recommend 3 to 5 other newsletters and they get paid for those recommendations. You can pay to be one of those recommendations and get subscribers from another newsletter. So the platforms that do this are the Sparkler Partner Network, Beehive Boost, There's a lot of other co-rich platforms that do this too. And so you can pay to get subscribers from these recommendations. The problem is that a lot of people sign up on accident for these recommendations and they don't even realize that they joined your newsletter, even though you're paying for that subscriber. And then there's just no context when they sign up. So they're signing up for another newsletter, then they see a pop-up, and then they see your logo in like one sentence about you along with 5 other newsletters. And they really have no idea what your newsletter is about and if they want it. And frankly, I think a lot of people who sign up for other newsletters via these recommendations are just not that smart. I'm not trying to be mean here. I just think, if you're kind of an experienced and savvy reader, you're not going to fall for the almost recommendation bait and switch that's going on. And so they just don't convert to any revenue at all. They don't open, they don't click at a high rate, and they definitely don't buy. I mean, I think some people get tricked of this because they see, oh, it only costs me 50 cents per subscriber and they have a 30% open rate and 5% click through rate. But when you dig into the numbers, and I have for myself and for clients, they don't buy anything. They don't buy anything from you. They don't buy anything from your advertisers. And that's all that matters if you're trying to build a business around your newsletter. I'll explain more on that later when I actually share some of my data with you at the end of this video. So for that reason, paid recommendations across all different channels are in the F tier. And I'm not trying to say that to like be mean to platforms that do paid recommendations. Like I like Beehive and Sparkloop and a lot of people that do this stuff. It just doesn't work. And that's my experience. Then there's free recommendations. It's like paid recommendations. It's the same sign up process, but instead of, paying to get that subscriber, other newsletters are choosing to recommend you in that widget, and you may choose to recommend other newsletters with the widget on your sign up page. And so Substack is known for this. When you join a Substack newsletter, they'll recommend like sometimes between 6 or 7 different other newsletters that you can sign up for in one click. And it's very hard to opt out of those recommendations. It's really, I think, poorly done, in my opinion. Beehive has the option to do recommendations. It's not required. Kit has the option to do recommendations. It's not required either. Sparkloop has a feature where you can do free recommendations too. And these are in the E tier. They basically have similar quality or slightly better than paid recommendations, but you don't pay for them. So I can't put them in the F tier because you didn't pay for them, but they're still not good. They don't convert to buyers and meaningful engagement and revenue in my experience. And the reason it's E tier is because it's just slightly better quality than paid recommendations. It can work if it's a highly targeted recommendation. So like if you're the #1 plumbing newsletter and the #1 HVAC newsletter recommends you, like you're going to have a lot of overlap between subscribers. But in most cases, it just doesn't work that way and it's not really worth pursuing. And then it's free. So it's better than paid recommendations, but still not something I would encourage. And I'll back that up later with some data. Now we have another really stupid strategy that people do. I cannot stand this, and let me know in the comments if you see this stuff too. Basically, people will send like cold newsletters. So they'll buy databases, they'll scrape lists, they'll scrape LinkedIn, like they can go on Apollo and buy a bunch of crap or buy it from some agency. And then without you opting in, without you even knowing who these people are, they'll start sending you their newsletter with no context. You'll just get the newsletter. And then like in their imagination, they think, oh, someone's going to read my content and they're going to love it. And they're going to keep opening. I'm going to have this great reader. It doesn't work at all. It never works. I've seen people who have done this. It doesn't work. It's stupid. It gets a lot of spam requests. It hurts your reputation. It may be illegal potentially. I don't know why people do this, but I see it every week in my inbox. And I see people complaining about it, and I've never seen it work. So don't be stupid. Don't do this. Cold newsletters are in the F tier. I understand cold emails can work like if you're selling a service or a software, but if you're using cold email or cold newsletter to grow your newsletter, it just doesn't work at all. I promise you. You're wasting your time with that. Okay. Another option, list buying and buying other newsletters. It's kind of similar to the cold email stuff, but it's slightly different because let's say someone has a newsletter about a similar topic to me, but they've decided they're going to shut it down and they don't have the time and bandwidth to send anymore. Well, a lot of people go and buy those newsletters and they kind of import those subscribers to their newsletter list and they start sending them their newsletter. So they're not buying the brand, they're just kind of buying the email addresses. And then the seller might say, hey, I've sold my newsletter to so-and-so. They have a great newsletter on the same topic. You're going to love it. You're going to get that now every Saturday. And then the buyer might say, hey, I've acquired this newsletter. Instead of their newsletter every Saturday, you're going to get my newsletter every Friday. And it's about the same thing. And you're going to like it even more. So you kind of have like a communication on the transaction. So like subscribers know what they're getting to some degree, but people are still going to miss those messages. But that's basically what buying list and buying other newsletters looks like. So you're buying other people's newsletters with the plan to add them to your list so you can grow your list. This is in the E tier. I mean, it might be in the F tier. I've actually done it personally. There was another newsletter about email marketing and newsletters that I bought from a friend that was relatively small. It didn't work well for me, and I haven't seen it work well ever. I think there's just some possibility that a really hyper targeted list for the right newsletter could work, but it would still be something that I would avoid because people just don't get the context. There's a lot of challenges carrying them over from one newsletter to another. So I would avoid this completely. Another kind of weird growth source that some people see as unethical, but is technically not illegal, is anonymous website traffic. The most common tool that people use to do this is retention.com, but there's other ones too. There's like OpenSend. I might have that wrong, but there's a bunch of other tools you can use. And basically what you do is these tools identify visitors, people who visit your website, and they find their email address, the visitor's email address, and they allow you to send them emails. So you could send them your newsletter, or you could send them cold emails that sell things, or maybe ask them to join your newsletter or something else. I mean, you can do anything with the email address, right? It retargets anonymous website visitors. I think this could work for selling like B2B services and B2B software where it's kind of like a cold email, but less cold, and you're trying to sell some high ticket things. I think this does not work at all for newsletter growth because it's just a totally different game. If someone went to your landing page, your website, and didn't join your newsletter, I don't think cold emailing them is going to help you. I think it's going to make you look creepy and it's going to turn a lot of people off. So I think it's good for like selling high ticket stuff. I think it's really bad for newsletter growth. And for that reason, it's an E tier, potentially an F tier. One thing about this I thought was funny is I visited a website who did this. And instead of me getting the cold email, one of my friends did instead. It was at my house. So that's really strange. I also don't trust that these services like retention.com have completely accurate data. So I haven't used retention.com, but I'm very skeptical of this process in general, and I wouldn't use it for newsletter growth. It's not always accurate either. Okay, I think one more here. Directories and aggregators. So like there's websites like inboxreads.com and basically people who make directories of like all the different newsletters by categories and by niche and stuff. And you can submit your newsletter to these sites to have it added to the directory. And the idea is that if people are looking for newsletters, they're going to go to this directory and sign up for your newsletters. It just doesn't work. People don't really search out newsletters like they do the next Netflix show. They're going to join your newsletter because they see an ad or they saw useful content on YouTube, social media, etc., and they want more of your content in their inbox. There's some type of value proposition for your newsletter, or you're using some type of lead magnet to incentivize them to join your email list. Directories are not helpful. Maybe it's good for the backlink, so I wouldn't totally discourage it, but it's not a good newsletter growth source. Then we have press coverage and PR, trying to get featured in Forbes and Business Insider and whatever other publication that's in your industry. Takes a lot of time. It rarely is going to drive any meaningful subscribers. A lot of these publications are very sensitive about who they're linking to. And even if they write an article about you or your newsletter or your business, they probably are not going to give you a backlink. They're really stingy about the backlinks and linking to you nowadays. So you probably won't get much traffic at all. And frankly, people don't really read these publications anymore. Forbes, Business Insider, like they're less popular than I think a lot of people realize. And it's just not scalable. So I'm going to put press coverage and PR as an F tier. I think it's nice to be like, say you were mentioned in something cool, like mentioned in a well-known publication, but it's not going to help grow your newsletter at all. So that is the tier list. Here's a quick recap. So S tier, YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, and meta ads, but I only recommend using meta ads if you're already monetizing your newsletter and your audience. This is where you should start. You should pick one of these channels, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, start posting, start growing. A tier, excellent options, but slightly not as good as S tier. So SEO, search, a lot of challenges to it, which are tough to justify. Substack notes, I put it here because it's almost an A tier. I think it has a lot of potential for a lot of people. Then there's B tier. These are solid. They can be great for some people, but not great for others. We have Google ads, LinkedIn ads, being a podcast guest, doing cross promotions of other newsletters. Then there's C tier. Everything in C tier is usually a bad idea, but it possibly can work for some people. E tier, you should basically skip it. It only works in some rare exceptions. F tier, I think, can be actively harmful, not in all cases, but many times actively harmful and does not lead to real meaningful revenue at all. Now, here's my recommendation. You should focus on one discovery platform, one partnership platform, and one paid channel. So just one of each. So discovery platforms are things like social media and video platforms. And the only ones that are in S tier are YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So I think you should pick one of those channels and focus on publishing content to that discovery channel consistently every week. I think you should pick one partnership channel and try and do that on a monthly basis, whether that's being a podcast guest, doing a cross promotion, or doing a guest post or guest newsletter. And then finally, when you're ready for paid ads, when you've built up an audience, your newsletter has some proven engagement, and you're able to monetize The only paid channel I would consider at all is meta ads. You should not explore any other paid channel until you have figured out how to get meta ads profitable, spending at least $10,000 per month, ideally more. Meta is way more scalable than that. I don't think you should think about anything else until you figure out one discovery channel, one partnership channel, and one paid channel. That's all you need. You don't need a dozen different ways to grow your newsletter. Having 1 to 3 is more than enough. You can get a huge list and build a huge business just from one channel. The idea is that quality is always more important than quantity. Now, remember what I said at the start when I said that I'm going to show you my actual data? I'm going to do that right now. So here's my actual data. What I have, this left column here is the acquisition source. So which source did this subscriber come from? So I have like direct website traffic, Bing, LinkedIn, YouTube, Google search, Twitter ads, meta ads, recommendations, paid recommendations. And then I have how many subscribers for each. And then I have how many buyers that came from each of those sources and my conversion rate to a buyer from each of those sources. That's my data right here. You can pause this if you want to read it out in full. So to kind of break it down for you, I think this is going to be really interesting. So total subscribers, I have gotten over time over 87,000. Total customers over 1,100. The real number is actually slightly bigger. This data isn't perfectly accurate. Like we're closer to 1,500 customers, but I don't have perfect attribution, but it's pretty close. So we'll say 1,100 customers in this example. And then the products I'm selling cost a minimum of $1,500, many times much more than that. So all the organic sources like website direct, LinkedIn, YouTube, Google search, Twitter, I got over 1,000 buyers from these channels, and 3.2% of my free subscribers bought something. So these are my highest quality subscribers is from these organic sources. Paid social ads, I got over 36,000 subscribers. And according to this attribution, 147 buyers. Reality is the number is actually a lot higher, but the platform that I use lumps in a lot of paid social traffic as direct traffic. And I'm counting direct traffic in the organic source option. Sometimes attribution isn't perfect, but 0.4% conversion rate from a free subscriber to a buyer from paid social. So that's 8 times worse than organic sources. It was still profitable and scalable for me, and we're still using meta ads, which is where all my paid social growth came from, is meta ads. And I did some Twitter ads about a year ago for myself. I've done it more often for clients, and Twitter ads suck. We've paused that, but meta ads is great. But still 8 times worse than organic, more or less. I think that this number is a little bit less accurate. Then I have paid and free recommendations. So over 6,000 subscribers from recommendations, and out of 6,000 people, we got 3 buyers. So 0.05% conversion rate to a buyer. That is 65 times worse than organic, 8 times worse than paid social. And I think that these sources have actively hurt my deliverability and engagement because I am getting consistent spam requests from these sources at a way higher rate than my other sources. And I consistently get open rates in like the 10, 20s, 30% from these sources when even meta ads or organic sources are getting 40, 50, 60% open rates. And so that drags down your engagement with your entire list. It also makes your inbox placement worse. And so more of my emails, because of these low quality sources dragging it down, more of your emails are probably going to land in promotions or updates or things like that instead of in the primary inbox, because every subscriber affects your email list reputation with all subscribers. Let me show you what this means in dollars. So organic sources, 30,000 subs, got about 1,000 buyers, over $1.5 million in revenue just from the 31,000 organic subscribers. This is a rough estimation because a lot of people bought products that were way more expensive than $1,500. So the real revenue is closer to the 2 million or over 2 million, but this is just to illustrate what that looks like. So just in this, underestimated model, my revenue per subscriber from organic sources is $48. $48 for every free newsletter subscriber from an organic source. That's huge. That's actually way higher than I expected before we ran these numbers. Paid social ads, about 36,000 subscribers, 147 buyers, $1,500 each, so over $200,000 in revenue. Again, the real number is a little bit higher. This is just a rough estimation. So revenue per subscriber, $6. Not bad because we acquire these subscribers from paid social at closer to $2 to $3, but could be better, and we'll work to improve that in the future. Recommendations, over 6,000 subscribers, 3 buyers. So $4,500 in revenue. We're making 73 cents per subscriber. That's really bad considering how these may hurt your engagement or your overall deliverability. So I've generated 342 times more revenue per subscriber from organic sources versus recommendations, which are the lowest quality sources that I've used for my newsletter. I also want to illustrate I can't share client data, but I've seen the exact same thing and actually more extreme differences from these sources with my clients. And it's not just the recommendation sources that I've used, it's all recommendation sources and it's co-reg sources and many other low intent, low quality sources that are cheap to get emails for, but they just don't lead to anything meaningful. Here's what I learned and what I think you should learn from this too. I have removed inactive subscribers from these sources. So anybody who hasn't clicked an email after 5 cents from one of these poor low quality sources, I just delete them. Okay. Not worth having them on the list. They're hurting me way more than they're helping me. And that improved my deliverability for everybody. I doubled down on what actually works. So I'm doing more LinkedIn content, more call to actions on LinkedIn, more and better YouTube videos. Hopefully this one is helpful. Better SEO strategy, better SEO optimization, and more and better meta ads and improving my funnel on meta so I can convert more of those subscribers into customers. I stopped obsessing over subscriber count, and you should too. I've focused my shift to conversion rates, to getting new customers. I focused on quality over quantity. And here's the sad part about all the stuff I'm sharing with you. One, most people are not going to see this. And then even people who do see this are not going to follow the advice that I'm sharing. They ignore everything I'm sharing about all these low quality crap sources. They're going to keep using recommendations because they're easy. They're going to try every single growth channel under the sun because more is better, right? Well, it's not. And they're going to keep chasing vanity metrics like list size because 100,000 subscribers sounds better than 10. But the smart ones listening to this, you are not going to do that. The smart ones are going to see that any type of subscriber that does not intentionally opt in on a web page is almost useless to you as a business. The only benefit to using low quality sources like the ones I showed you today is to your ego. Email list size is just a vanity metric that does not matter at all. Even the metrics like open rate, click-through rate are less important than you think too, because oftentimes these low quality sources might have decent open rate, might have decent click-through rate, but they never convert to buyers for you or your sponsors. What really matters is new customers, the free subscribers that convert to paid subscribers, and the conversion rate from free to paid, your customer satisfaction, your customer success, ad clicks and ad click-through rate on your sponsors link in your newsletter if you have ads in your newsletter, and your sponsor renewal rate. So how many sponsors buy more sponsorships with you because they will renew if the traffic that you send that advertiser drives leads and sales for them. Again, you're going to make much more money with a quality list of 5,000, 10,000 people and a good offer to sell them than a crap email list of 100,000 people. So which one are you going to be? Are you going to be the smart operator who focuses on quality over quantity? Or are you going to try and game the system to make your list look big, but that's not going to impact your revenue and your bottom line at all? That's it. I hope this video is helpful. And if it was, I really appreciate if you subscribe and like this video. We're trying to get the 10,000 subscribers, and the best way that you can support me is just to subscribe, like, and leave a comment if you have a question. If you want more resources on how to grow and monetize your newsletter, all of my best content is published to my email list. So you can sign up for that below, and you can get the slides for this video below.